Most people do not want freedom. They want security. Sigmund Freud. And security is exactly why people become replaceable. You are not replaced because you lack value. You are replaced because you became predictable, because you became available, because you removed uncertainty from the equation. Human beings are wired to adapt quickly. We adjust to presence. We normalize consistency. What once felt special becomes expected. What becomes expected loses intensity, and what loses intensity begins to feel ordinary. The uncomfortable truth is this: constant availability reduces perceived value, not because you are weak, but because the brain recalibrates reward through contrast. When someone is always there, always responding, always understanding, always accessible, their presence stops feeling like a choice and starts feeling like a given. And anything that feels guaranteed loses psychological weight. Being replaceable is rarely about being inferior. It is about being interchangeable. When your behavior signals that you will stay regardless of treatment, effort, or reciprocity, the dynamic shifts. Effort decreases. Caution decreases. Curiosity decreases. Not out of cruelty, but out of adaptation. The human mind conserves energy. It invests more attention in what feels uncertain than in what feels secured. Scarcity sharpens focus. Predictability softens it. This is why people sometimes value you more when you distance yourself. Not because distance is magical, but because absence interrupts normalization. It reintroduces contrast. It forces recalculation. When you remove yourself, even briefly, you disrupt certainty, and disruption forces awareness. Now, here is the deeper layer. Many people become replaceable because they overcorrect, they overgive, they overaccommodate, they overexplain. They believe that more effort equals more value. But effort without boundaries often signals low self-preservation. And low self-preservation communicates something subtle. You are willing to shrink to maintain connection. Once that pattern is visible, perceived leverage changes. Replaceability grows when identity dissolves into availability. When your schedule bends instantly, when your standards adjust quietly, when your silence never happens, when your absence is never felt. Humans notice patterns more than promises. If your pattern says, "I will always be here," then your presence loses tension. And tension is part of perceived significance. This does not mean you must manipulate absence. It means you must protect self-containment. The people who are hardest to replace are not the most intense. They are the most self-contained. They have structure. They have direction. They have commitments outside of the dynamic. Their life does not orbit around one connection, and that independence creates perceived stability. When someone senses that your world continues without them, your presence feels chosen, not dependent. And chosen presence holds weight. Replaceability increases when fear overrides standards, when losing someone feels worse than losing yourself, when silence creates panic, when distance creates insecurity, when inconsistency is tolerated repeatedly. Every small concession lowers perceived cost of losing you, and when the perceived cost of losing you drops, replacement becomes easier. Not emotionally easier, psychologically easier. Because the mind calculates value based on contrast, effort, and consequence. If there is no consequence to neglect, no consequence to inconsistency, no consequence to withdrawal, then recalibration occurs. Being irreplaceable is not about being perfect. It is about being distinct. Distinct in standards, distinct in reactions, distinct in pace, distinct in self-respect. When your boundaries are visible and your availability is intentional, your presence carries weight. When your attention is selective, it becomes meaningful. When your absence is possible, your presence becomes valuable. Replaceability is rarely decided in one moment. It grows through repetition, through over-availability, through invisible concessions, through fear-based accommodation. And once normalization sets in, emotional urgency declines. The question is not whether people replace others. Humans adapt. The real question is whether your behavior made adaptation effortless. Because people do not replace what feels costly to lose. They replace what feels constant and guaranteed. The pattern repeats until you see it.